Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier, and thank you for stopping by. I'm always grateful. Let's move on to Africa. The continent's Eurobonds have returned 6.4% in 2019, according to JP Morgan. The average gain for emerging markets is 4.4%. Africa is the place to be for emerging market bond investors. Continent's dollar securities are outperforming those of all other regions this year as the US Federal Reserve's dovish tilt entices traders to buy up riskier, high-yielding assets. In the Eurobond space, Kenya is out in front, its debt having returned 9.9%. Zambia is in second place. Nigeria, Angola, and Gabon are also in the frame. At the end of last year, one of my trade recommendations was to buy the 30-year Kenyan Eurobond, and I said African Eurobond paper, which had double-digit yields, that was a 30-year, will be difficult to resist after sifting through credit risk. You might consider putting together a portfolio and leveraging in 50%. 30 years, I said, is a long enough off-ramp. 28th of January, I was saying the US interest rate curve shift significantly lower, and this in turn has boosted frontier and sub-Saharan African sovereign debt prices and lowered yields. At the 20th of January, the 30 had rallied up over 100 basis points from double digits to below 9. And I was sort of commending the Treasury, who were thinking about issuing a $2.5 billion Eurobond and a $1 billion syndicated loan at the time, cumulative total $3.5 billion. And I said such a call is tactically the right call because it kicks the can down the road, plus you're selling into a strong market. South African all shares up 3.43% this year. Dollar versus rand, have a look at this. All the year's gains have been eroded. Egyptian pound, 17.584. Nigeria, this is David Pilling. In a system where candidates jump between political parties as if they were changing buses, personality and money trump policy discussion. Nigerian all shares up 3.13% year to date, and as you remember, it's the worst performing stock market since Buhari came to power, and I think that report triggered some buying. Although the Somali-speaking peoples of the Horn of Africa all generally follow the belief that they descend from a single man named Sumal, this is a very interesting article that Rashid Abdi put me onto in Quillette, and talking about the Somalis. The Northerners, called the Isaac, recently have managed, alongside other clans, to establish a near-functioning democracy in northern Somaliland. To the south is the land of the Darod clans, where the civil war has been raging since the 1990s. These Darod clans, which are still largely nomadic, gradually have been expanding southwestwards in search of new grazing lands to occupy with their herds of camels, cattle, sheep and goats. Until the late 1890s, they were barely present in what came to be called Kenya's northern frontier, a vast arid savanna, woodland and desert that stretched west to the Sudan and north to Ethiopia. However, by the time the British established their authority over all of the Kenyan colony, and especially by the end of World War II, the Darod clans increased their numbers in the northeast of Kenya in what is now called Wajir, Mandera and Garissa districts. These areas now have a growing and sometimes dominant Somali presence. In 1964, the Somali of northern Kenya fought a 10-year on-and-off guerrilla war against the newly established Kenya government in hopes of linking their territory with the newly independent state of Somalia. This strategy did not work. From the late 19th century onwards, the British bypassed the Swahili, sending in missionaries from the coast to convert the Bantu and Nilotic-speaking tribes of the Kenyan interior, these being former victims of the coastal slave trade. The modernizing elites of these groups then fought with the British during World War I and World War II and demanded independence after the war, which they got. From an ethnographic point of view, what this means is that the descendants of the non-Muslim tribes that formerly provided the coastal Muslims with slaves were now in charge of the government and the economy of Kenya, making Muslims to the northeast and on the coast a political minority within the region. Then talking about after 9/11, the southwest expansion of the Somali Derod into Kenyan territory took on a new religious dimension. The young men who man al-Shabaab and the youngish imams who write their fatwas, the religious rulings that encourage them to bomb infidel hotels in Nairobi and other places, have broken away from their elders. Their violent nihilism isn't much different in character from that of rampaging Congolese militias, except they perform their violence under cover of jihad. But whatever the pretext, the campaign can be classified as former Governor of Tanganyika and Zanzibar, Sir Richard Turnbull, called it, the Derod invasion, northeastern Kenya. It's a different perspective to one I've read before, I must admit.